Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
Want to welcome back the Attorney General, Pete Neronha, to my studio. He's back for a return visit. Good morning, Attorney General. Nice to have
Gene.
you with us.
Great to be with you.
You and I are taping on a Friday, 10:34. Word just came down from the Supreme Court that the bump stock ban has been thrown out, ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. A bump stock is something that you attached to a firearm, and it makes it shoot faster. Am I giving it a very simple definition?
Yeah, closer to an automatic than a semi-automatic. Automatics are illegal under federal law. I haven't read the decision. Obviously, just walked in here from a breakfast over about elder abuse, but I'll have to read it. You know, these are the things that are worrisome when it comes to public safety. The truth is that these more dangerous weapons are in the hands of criminals, and they just do more damage faster. Yeah, the bump stock came into the headlines after the Las Vegas shooting. Correct. You attach it to it, and it boom, 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 recoils. Correct. And it does it. Now, we just had our own gun legislation passed and signed by the governor last week, safe storage. So if the Supreme Court is taking a closer look at these kinds of things, bump stock, they're going to allow it. Are you concerned about things like the safe storage? Yes. That they may say, hey, look, guy owns a gun. What he does with it behind closed doors is his business. Well, look, I'm concerned about all of our gun safety legislation that we've passed with the Supreme Court. I think we are safer at a minimum in the interim. But we don't know how it's going to go. The Supreme Court can surprise you. And the Bruin case, from which all of this stems, and again, I haven't read what they decided today, but this Bruin case goes back a couple of years. It was a multi-part decision because different justices took different approaches. And so I don't think it is going to be the Wild West when it comes to your ability to own and carry firearms. But where they will draw the line specifically, I think, is still a little bit of an unknown. And you've you've been a supporter of these gun control initiatives. So this is your area. Yeah. All right. I know you want to talk about health care. I know you've been preoccupied with the hospitals and things like that. But before we do that, the legislative session just wrapped up. Thank God. This week. And you got most of what you want, from what I can read. I saw the list of things that you were looking for. You got most of what you want. What is the prize you take away? Well, Gene, I think there are many. I think the lead paint registry being fully funded and unchanged. The governor wanted to change it through a budget amendment, notwithstanding that it passed last year and he signed it. I was really worried about watering down that lead paint registry. Too many kids are lead poisoned in Rhode Island, more than 500 a year. As much as 20% of Providence school children are lead poisoned. We talk a lot about how well or not well that many of them are doing in school. Lead poisoning leads to the kind of developmental disabilities that can cause that and lead to that. So I'm grateful that that passed. We got some more investigative authority to use our civil division to make Rhode Islanders' lives better. That was a huge win. So look, I'm really grateful to the leadership in the General Assembly, where I have a really good working relationship. It's a two-way relationship. I try to be of help to them when I can be. So we had a good session. We've had a good couple of years, frankly. Yeah, I haven't heard you complaining about not getting enough money. You went through that once. You made a big stink about that. Yes, and in fact, Gene, we're paying for those lawyers ourselves through the monies that we recovered in the opioid cases for legal fees specifically. So Rhode Islanders, if you think about it, are getting an absolutely wonderful deal. They got 15 lawyers who come to work for them every day in places like healthcare. That we're effectively paying for ourselves through our litigation efforts. Okay, let's talk about health care, because this has been dominating your press releases over here for the past 2 weeks. And my voice. Fatima and Roger Williams, under the auspices of Charter. Prospect Medical Holdings out in LA. Prospect. And they're involved with private equity and things like that. And you just won a decision in Judge Stern's courtroom. Yes, we did. To hold them responsible. They owe you some money. $17 million. Yeah, and for what? For what is it? For unpaid bills. So it's just a part of what they're required to do. So when we allowed a change of ownership, and it's complicated, but they wanted a change of ownership structure about 3 years ago. It's part of our decision. There are many things in it. Put $80 million in escrow that we control as security to force them to keep the hospitals open, and that's worked. But they also have to pay their bills, obviously, to keep a hospital going. They haven't been doing that. So we went to court. They wanted all kinds of time to pay it. We didn't believe that that was necessary. So we went to court and got a fantastic order from Judge Stern that's going to require them to do that. And more broadly, Gene, makes it very clear that this ownership out in California can't use our hospitals as effectively a bank or a credit agency to fund their hospitals out in California. It's a huge win, particularly when we're in the middle of a decision about what to do with a change of ownership of those hospitals right now.
You don't like these people.
Oh, I don't.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
No,
like,
I don't.
You don't
I've
like
had
the
to force them to do the right thing.
Right. You don't like the idea of private equity money in this. You don't like this. You mentioned his name before you came in here. The entity.
Mm-hmm.
The entity.
Prospect Medical Holdings. Right. Yeah, and their owners, Dr. Lee and Mr. Topper.
Yeah.
And Leonard Green, the private equity firm that owned 60% of it until 3 years ago. They have done nothing but use hospitals across this country, including here, safety net hospitals, community hospitals. They've leveraged them to put money in their own pockets instead of delivering health care. In my view, it's outrageous. It's why we took the stand we did 3 years ago. That was the time to fight. We're fighting again, and I think we're going to end up in a good place. But it's not going to be easy because of the overall problems we have with health care across the board in Rhode Island.
They can appeal this fine?
Oh, they could, but I don't.
You expect them to?
No.
They'll write the check and be done with it.
Well, that's my demand, and if they don't, they're facing contempt.
Okay. On related, just on a related note, we're getting some money out of Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah.
Importantly, I think you got the agreement along you and other attorneys general and other lawyers. They're not going to make talcum powder with talc anymore.
Yes.
That's kind of buried in the news release. But
Yes.
for a while, they've been on the hook for this stuff, and they were still making it.
Yes.
So no more.
No more. You know, I don't know about you, Gene, but I know my mother loved that Johnson & Johnson's baby powder. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, like in many of these cases, Johnson & Johnson knew they had a product that could cause some significant health care issues. So I'm grateful that we've recovered $7 million. That's going to, again, go to our taxpayers to be used by the General Assembly in ways that will benefit them. You know, one thing is I can't keep the money we recover. So, you know, and that's probably a good thing because the last thing I want to do is grant it out and chase people and make sure they're doing the right thing. But particularly in the opioid space, and this was not an opioid case, we've been really careful to make sure that the money's being used for opioid abatement and recovery.
Okay, let's talk about opioids. You led us nicely there. In the top of our program, we had a soundbite from you saying we're going to hold everybody accountable, including the distributors.
Yes.
And I asked you on the radio as soon as you said that. Does that include the home team, CVS?
Yeah.
You're going to hold CVS accountable?
Well, we did, Gene. If you remember,
but you said there's unfinished business here.
Well, we did.
Forward.
Well, we recovered multiple millions of dollars from CVS and Walgreens and other pharmacies. So that work is effectively done. My point was this, that as other companies that helped drive the crisis come on to our radar screen, we're going to continue to hold them accountable. We're still in court with Purdue because of the way the Supreme Court decided a case involving them. So look, these are knockdown, drag-out battles. The money, spending the money, frankly, is the easy part. Getting it's the hard part, and I'm proud of our team that was able to do it.
All right, Purdue is the manufacturer.
Also a distributor, but yes.
They distribute. CVS got the stuff sold at retail.
Yes,
and
also
sold a lot of it irresponsibly.
And also was a distributor in their own right. So yes, both parts of the equation.
Does that become a little uncomfortable for you with Helena Folk's role in this? She was running CVS when all this happened. Let me just finish.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
And we expect her to run for governor.
Yes.
There's been talk about you running for governor. Well, just a month ago, you talked about you running for lieutenant governor. Maybe with her. Where does this leave you? You and Helena.
Look, Helena and I have had a lot of. Look, we agree about a lot of things when it comes to government. That there's a need for strong leadership in Rhode Island to move us forward. We're not the kind of state like Massachusetts that can effectively run on its own, although they have, in my view, a good governor now. There's no question that Helena has to answer those questions. And, you know, I'll leave it to her to answer them. But I think if she, I don't want to speak for her, but I think if she were to reflect on what CVS did at the time, she would acknowledge that it wasn't adequate. In other words, what do I mean by that? There were millions of opioid doses that were coming into Rhode Island. And you could see it. If you look at the data, and I've seen the data, you could see it was going to certain pharmacies, East Providence, Wakefield. And, you know, some people have said, well, Wakefield's near South County Hospital. There's no way that a hospital could account for these doses. The obligation of companies like CVS and other pharmacies was to report those suspicious orders to the DEA, because it's a closed system, as you and I have talked about. Every one of those pills is accounted for. And CVS wasn't doing a good enough job. That's why we recovered millions of dollars from them, as did other AGs across the country. Helena has to answer those questions, and I'll leave it to her to answer them.
Yeah, she's been asked several times during the last campaign, and their stock answer is, well, once we found out, we took action. It's a little unsatisfying for some. That company's on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars over time.
Agreed.
A lot happened there. All right, let's pick up this conversation about your political future, plus other things of interest to you with the Attorney General when we come back. Welcome back. My guest, Attorney General Peter Neronha, continues with us. You know, that last segment, we talked a little bit about your maybe aspirations to run for governor. So tell me, governor or lieutenant governor? Because you kind of surprised me about a month ago. You floated the idea, well, maybe lieutenant governor.
Well, someone asked me.
Two different jobs.
Yeah, of course. Dan McGowan asked me about that. Look, I think, well, let me step back and say this. I love being Attorney General, and it's, my focus is there, and every politician will tell you that. But it's true, because we've got so much going on. Lieutenant governor is only appealing to me if I think I can advance the issues I really care about, and healthcare is one of them. I don't think we're doing enough long-term and short-term strategic thinking around healthcare. And so if you could use that office to advance that ball, I would think about it. The problem, though, is that without a partner who's going to give you that authority, that would be the governor. Really what you're doing is you've got a bully pulpit, but it may not take you anywhere. You know, but whether it's governor or lieutenant governor, Gene, the truth is I have to figure out what I want to do with my 60s. You know, I love public service, but I also know that I love my family. And both of my children are not in Rhode Island. And my wife is around my age, is a physician, as you know, and she's not sure what she wants to do with her 60s either. So that's really a family discussion that still has to happen. Look, I love public service. I think the state needs leadership. Frankly, I don't think we're getting it now from this governor. I'm just going to say it flat out. We're not getting it. It needs to come from somewhere, or the future for Rhode Island is not what it can be. We are a great state, and we can be great, but we need leadership to get us there. Healthcare is just one area where we need it.
So if you become lieutenant governor, and the Governor McKee wins re-election, he's not going to give you any power.
I would think not.
And that's a powerless office to begin with.
Agreed.
So come on, what's this stuff about, I'll solve health care? You don't have that power.
You don't, no.
How could you compare that? Well, maybe I'll run for that, maybe I'll run for governor.
Yeah, look.
Two different things.
Totally different, and I think that's why I think the only way I'd consider it would be if I was running with a partner.
And that would be Helena Folks at this point.
More likely than not, although we haven't talked about it. But the truth is, Gene, how do I put this? You know, I had a pretty significant healthcare issue last year, and I lost a good chunk of. I did the work, but I lost a big part of my personal life last year. There are things I couldn't do for a good chunk of it. It made me think more about the time that I have left and how I want to spend it. And as much as I love public service, I'm not sure I want to do all the things that are necessary to stay in elected office. You give up a lot, and I give great credit to people who run for public office. You give up a lot, you gain a lot. I've been in public service for 30 years after I left a big law firm in Boston, and I've had a wonderful career. But there's a lot of nights and weekends that you miss, and I think my kids are now, one's in St. Louis, one's in Chicago now, where he's doing his residency in medicine. But there are times when I think about the times that I didn't spend with them. They were little kids when I became U.S. Attorney, and now that one's 27, one will be 24, and I think about how I want to spend the 60s.
Well, you're in Jamestown; they'll come back to you.
Oh God!
You got a good,
we got
a good spot.
We got to build a good state so that they'll want to come back.
All right, let me ask you this: is money important to you? Now, before you poo-poo and say, "Oh, money," the truth is, you've given up millions of dollars. You could have been a top guy at a top 10 firm if you wanted. You started in a big Boston law firm.
I did.
You could have made millions and millions of dollars. That's true. It's indisputable. This is the route you've chosen. At a certain point, do you want to make some money? Set your kids up? Leave trust fund for your grandchildren?
No. You know, I think my kids, I think our greatest gift to them was to bring them places I didn't see as a child. And to make sure that they got the education that they needed to succeed. You know, as I mentioned, one is a physician. He graduated from medical school. He'll start his residency. And I'm really, it's incredible when you see, Dr. Zachary Neronha on a screen in front of you at graduation. And my youngest one's an analyst for American Airlines, and he's responsible for planning things that go through Miami. They are independent at their young ages, and they're ready to go. So no, I mean, look, You know, my wife's a physician. I haven't sacrificed that much. She has given me the opportunity to do this work, as have my mentors, Senators Rhode and Whitehouse. I remain incredibly grateful to all three of them. Yeah. Wife comes first, of course. But what's important to me is making sure that the next chapter of my life is one that has meaning for me and my family.
Okay, now you mentioned the boys. You used to, correct me if I'm wrong, you were tweeting a lot more a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
You've kind of slowed that down a bit. You had a little controversy with some of that stuff. Did the boys say to you, hey, Pop, lay off the tweets?
No, they like it. I think, you know, I don't want the tweets to be a distraction from the substance. You know, I started tweeting really because my office really, I think, was not treated fairly by the governor's budget over a year ago. Yeah. And I felt if I didn't bring attention to that, somehow it was going to be business as usual. And I think just by changing that narrative and getting out there a little bit, people started paying attention to me in my office a little bit more on that issue. Yeah. And it was a success. But look, I don't want it to be a distraction from the work, and so yeah, you know, I guess I've changed a little bit, but occasionally
you've slowed that down.
Occasionally,
noticeable.
But occasionally,
you do. I saw you in Italy with your family,
and I still have a little fun from time to time.
It does, no matter what you tweet out, it does at some point become a vicious cesspool of vitriol.
Oh, it does.
So I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I think, Gene, if I can, I think if the media that would not cover the issues that you care about, if it gets their attention, and that has certainly happened, then I think it has value. But you're right, if it becomes a back and forth with sort of unnamed, difficult people, it's not worth it.
I really don't do it. I consume it. I think it's a wonderful place to consume news.
Yes, and certainly keep abreast of what's going on.
But you could tweet out the cure for cancer, and I'm telling you, it would degenerate into an absolute all-out brawl. We have about 2 minutes left. Just a couple of quick ones. You mentioned Governor McKee several times in this particular interview. I know you guys, there's no love lost between you. You may be taking him on. I will see where that goes. He is still under investigation by the FBI in something that you started and referred to them. Isn't he at this point in time owed a resolution? And can't you move that along? Yeah, you held that over his head during the election.
Well, unfair characterization, Gene. I mean,
which way?
Well, because when you're doing any kind of investigation, you literally slow it down during an election because you want to tip it one way or the other.
Well, I'll tell you, Donald Trump might disagree with you at this point.
I'm sure Donald Trump and I disagree about nearly everything, if not everything.
The point is, you had him under investigation with this ILO thing. He had to run a re-election on that, and now so much time has gone by. At what point do you say, give me the answer? Yes or no, FBI?
The public will have an answer soon.
Could you tip your hand a little bit for me?
I know you want me to, Gene, but I know I'm not going to do that, no.
But is this going to drag on, or there'll be a resolution at some point?
There'll be a resolution.
Do you think it's been fair to him?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think we have a job to do. And, of course, I think we're fair when we do our jobs. But we do our jobs. And if the governor or whoever doesn't understand the work that we do, then that's really on them. I mean, I think I've got a lot of experience in investigating cases that lead to charges and some that don't. I think every one of those has been handled fairly, not only by me personally, but by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the various teams that have worked those cases.
It's been a pleasure having you in.
It's always good to talk to you, Gene.
Covered a lot of ground. Just before I leave, a few unfinished notes. Only got less than a minute. You're really pushing to take apart the CRMC, Coastal Resource Management Council. Yeah, just give me 30 seconds. You got to come back with that because you didn't get what you want on that.
Yeah, no. Look, it needs to be redone. It's the Coastal Resources Management Council sits above a professional group that knows what it's doing. The council doesn't know what it's doing, and so it drives the car into the road. It's like you've got a professional race car driver, and you turn it over to me to drive the car. That's not what you want. CRMC takes good decision making and drives into the gutter. We got to get rid of it.
This is a big deal on Jamestown because they got you surrounded over there.
They do, Block Island too, and elsewhere.
All right, Attorney General, thanks for coming in. We'll continue on the radio. Appreciate it.
See you.